Quazi here. 7 years ago, I came across one simple quote that changed my life forever. It was a quote by Eckhart Tolle in his book, The Power of Now, the first ever self-help book that I'd ever read. In it, he said, "The secret of life is to die before you die and find that there is no death." From that moment onwards, something inside of me had died, which made room for something greater to be reborn. I realized that this teaching went far beyond modern self-help teachings. This has ancient origins with the Stoics, who would live by the powerful reminder of memento mori, translating to, remember, you must die. By meditating daily on the inevitability of death, they realized the urgent need to take action and live the life that they actually wanted. Because contemplating mortality clarified what really mattered and gave them the motivation to pursue it. It grounded them amidst life's difficulties and dispelled any illusion that they had unlimited time. But it wasn't just the Stoics. The ancient philosopher Confucius also understood how reflecting on mortality highlights the importance of being present when he wrote, "We have two lives, and the second one begins when we realize that we only have one." He knew that contemplating this reality snaps us awake to life's preciousness, and throughout history, there are many other cases of societies and civilizations that understood the power of confronting death. The Buddhists see death as a natural transition to help the ego dissolve. The Aztecs believe that dying is a natural part of the life cycle, and it's even embraced with rituals. And the people of Bhutan, who think about death on a daily basis and also happen to be one of the happiest nations on earth. But here's the problem. The society we live in today seems like it pretends death doesn't even exist. It's taboo and not even spoken about often. And it's this very attitude that leads us towards sleepwalking through life until it's too late. Because most people in Western civilizations live as though they're going to live forever, which causes them to have no urgency, direction, or guidance. But reflecting on death can wake us from this complacency. And it also has another secret power. When you meditate daily upon your finite time, and you realize that you're going to die, you stop taking this life for granted and are able to finally tap into the powers of the human mind that allow you to bend reality to your will. When your lower self dies, the higher self has room to be born. In today's video, I'm going to share with you one of the fundamental steps to take in order to create reality in accordance with your will. Something that I've never spoken about before because it was too taboo. I've been thinking about this for a very, very long time, and I'm finally ready to share this with you. Let's get started. So recently I was reading this book by an author called Michael Easter. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast and he wrote this book called The Comfort Crisis, outlining why and how we're getting so comfortable we're becoming more and more dead every single day. In this book, he visited a very small country, a very poor country of Bhutan. And in Bhutan, the predominant measure of success isn't GDP, it isn't gross domestic product. They're not measuring how much they're producing. What they're measuring is something called GNH, gross national happiness. And that's what I was very, very fascinated by. Something important that Michael Easter came across, he came to the realization that in Bhutan, not only do they measure gross national happiness, the way they achieve utmost happiness is they ponder on death multiple times a day. So in the book, he has an exercise where he asks you, how many times a day do you think about death? Not the Roman Empire, how many times a day do you think about death and dying? I realized that since the age of 17, 18, after I read that Eckhart Tolle book, after I really started to think about death, I had this period in my sophomore year of college where I started to read a lot of Nietzsche, a lot of Freud, and a lot of nihilistic work. And I started to think a lot more about death. At first it was very depressing, but then something awakened within me. And I like to call this the higher self. The self that's beyond life and death, beyond good and evil, as Nietzsche would say. In Bhutan, they think a lot about death every single day. and they don't push it aside and think about it as taboo like us Americans do. This kind of brought me to this other realization that I had that made a profound change in my life as it pertains to negative thoughts. So when we think about death, we think that thinking about death is a negative thought. What do we do with all negative thoughts? To demonstrate that, let me tell you a story about one of my friends who came to me and he was like, "Hey Quazi, I'm generally very good and I have a lot of positive thoughts, but sometimes I have these one or two negative thoughts that stop me and I just can't get rid of them." What do we do when we're confronted with negative thoughts or undesirable thoughts or stimuli, things that we don't like? We're immediately trying to get rid of them. This is one of the worst things you can do, because the desire to get rid of a negative thought, the desire to avoid negative experience itself is a negative experience. That is the foundational basis of resistance. The whole nature of that experience is rooted in resistance. Instead, I advised him, what if you accepted those negative thoughts and you realized them for what they truly are? They're not me, they're not mine, I didn't choose them. They seem to have arisen from somewhere where I don't know, and they seem to pass with time. But the more I hold on to them, the more meaning I give them. The best way to keep your mind clean is to watch and observe those negative thoughts and experiences. If you want to make a profound difference in your life and in your reality, you first need to get into the level of acceptance. Because when you stop resisting thoughts around death and instead you start to embrace them, yes, everything will pass. The good things that I have now, they're not going to last forever. Why not enjoy them while you can? When you get into this acceptance mode, you allow life to evolve. When you're in resistance mode, you keep yourself stuck. Do you understand why you feel stagnant energy all the time? It's because you're resisting something. But this resistance has become such a habitual nature that it's become a permanent state of being. You don't even notice it. All of the things that you're resisting, they've gotten pushed down into subconscious realms. But in order for them to come out, you need to get into states of acceptance, states of confronting all of the things that you've been running away from. Because at the end of the day, if our energy is tied up into resistance, then that's where our energy is going to go to, which is going to create more and more of things to resist. Wherever attention goes, energy flows. To fully understand this, the things that made a profound shift in my life, from being stuck in that job, hating it, not knowing what to do with my life, not having a direction in my life, not being able to clearly see that vision in my life, to being able to clearly see everything, manifesting that 7-figure business, doing the thing that I love to do every single day, living in this beautiful house that we just bought, my wife and I. This profound change in my life happened after I started to understand these 3 main things that I'm going to share with you. The number one thing we have to understand is how to control our attention, realizing what it means to wake up in reality. Learning how to properly direct our attention away from resistance and towards what we want. The second thing that needs to happen is learning how to direct all of this resistances that we have and channel it into intention. The final thing that needs to happen for you to make all of this click is not just saying an affirmation to yourself, but to fully realize that you have become it. Realization. Becoming one with the thing that you once upon a time wished. If you truly master these 3 things, your life will never be the same again. So let's jump into number 1, waking up in reality, learning to properly direct your attention. Have you ever had a dream and you've woken up in the dream and you realize that you could control it? What would it mean to wake up in reality? To realize that you're experiencing reality, that maybe you're perhaps dreaming in reality. What happens then? This is something that I've experimented with, and every single culture, ancient yogic traditions to Egyptians to Greeks, they always talk about your attention. Our attention is the only thing that we have total control over, where we direct our attention. Therapists like Viktor Frankl, who was under Nazi regime, he was in a concentration camp. He said everything can be taken away from a man, but the last of his freedoms, his own attitude, that can never be taken away from him. And that is the choice that you and I both have. And that is surprisingly the only thing that we need in order to gain control over our destiny. The goal for us is to learn to wake up in reality. In order to wake up in reality, we have to understand that in this physical reality, operating as a human being, there are 2 main screens that we have at any given time. The inner screen and the outer screen. The outer screen is when we are focused and fully absorbed by something that is happening outside of us, something very, very demanding, cognitively or physically. Maybe you're completing a project, maybe you're playing a video game, or you're doing something where you have your full focus on something outside of you. The inner screen is when you have certain thoughts, certain feelings that has completely occupied your attention, that you cannot focus on anything outside of you. Either we are completely submerged in something outside of us, or we're completely pulled in by something that's happening inside of us. The true master to reality has his attention on both and neither at the same time. What does that mean? When you can watch both of these two screens at the same time, your attention is in between these two screens. If you can do this, you control everything. I can promise you, things will just happen, faculties will just open up, and coincidences will just happen that allow you to dictate your destiny. This is done via the inner witness. Can you see that there is a watching happening? Maybe you're watching this video, and there is something that's watching you watching this video. There is an observation, a witness there that is watching this video. Maybe you bring your focus to your breath. Right now you're breathing, and right now you can also notice that there is a breathing. The breathing is not you. This body is not you. Maybe you can feel sensation in your hands, right? You feel the sensation in your hands. Maybe you grab onto something, like I'm grabbing this chalk, and I can feel this chalk. But I can also watch that there is a feeling. I can notice that there is a feeling. And all of this noticing, this witnessing, it happens without judgment. I am not the chalk. I'm not the feeling of grabbing onto the chalk. I am. There is existence. In ancient yogic terminology, this is an act called self-inquiry, where you peel the layers of reality and you go beyond body, then you go beyond mind, then you go beyond consciousness, and you abide as pure awareness, pure witnessing. There is simply a watching and observing. So the key is to get into a non-judging watchfulness. This is how you center your attention. Once you can center your attention, once the mind is empty, now whatever you focus on, you can choose to direct your attention to that. Whatever is required of you, you make a choice to direct your attention to the outer screen, or you make a choice to direct your attention to the inner screen. It's not getting sucked into unconsciously. This is a conscious choice. If you can begin to live consciously, you will create the circumstances that you want in your life consciously. This is how I went from being stuck in that pattern of needing a weekly paycheck at my job to taking the risk to quitting and starting up my own business. As you start doing this exercise, this is what I do every single day for 15 minutes, just watching. Sit down, meditate, close your eyes, and just watch everything that's coming up, all the thoughts that come up, all the feelings and sensations that come up. There is a watching. That's all you need to do. If you can do this for 2 years, 3 years, your life will profoundly start to change. You will never be the same person that you used to be. Now that we understand this, let's get to part 2, channeling. For most people, 99% of the time, we're living in avoiding pain, avoiding failure, but all of this happens beneath the surface when you try to convince yourself, oh look, I have this, oh look, all of this is happening. If you need to convince yourself of something, do you really believe it? Is it really true? It's not. We need to properly channel all of these fears, doubts, and worries that we have into the thing that we want. But one thing you have to understand, and this shocked me when I understood this, is all fear that we have ultimately stems from the fear of death. But I took a very big risk, quit my job to start up my business, and there was always the possibility that I would fail. And I would be left with no money and no way to survive for myself. I would have to rely on my parents, and that would bring me shame because my friends would be earning more money than me, and social status wise that would bring me down. If my social status was low, then I would be outcast from society, and if I got outcast from society, then I would be left to die. This is just our biological conditioning. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, they all stem from the fear of death, because ultimately our biology is hardwired to avoid death. And this is where importance comes in. Because we're so hardwired to avoid death, it is difficult for people to become conscious and awaken past this biological programming. When you become an intelligent, sentient human being, physical bodily death doesn't mean much to you because you know more than just the body. Does that make sense? This is why all the yogis and enlightened gurus, they talk about enlightenment, becoming enlightened, going beyond mind and body. Because when you start to fully accept the inevitability of death, the natural question becomes, what's beyond this physical life? There must be something beyond it. And so you ask the right questions. So this brings me to understanding importance. The reason why we hold on to all of these resistances, the reason why we fail, is because of this thing called importance. We either put importance on something outside of us, outer importance, or something inside of us, an inequality, inner importance. You're expecting a sale to come through in your business and you put that on a pedestal. You're really waiting for it. You keep checking your bank account or your Stripe or your payment processor to see if the payments come in. And the more importance you put onto it, the less likely it happens. And it kind of seems like there's some magical force at play. And there is, right? You're creating this resistance. But then the minute you let go of it, the minute you stop thinking about it, the minute you allow yourself to forget it, all of a sudden it happens unexpectedly. Have you ever noticed how the greatest things in life happen unexpectedly? When you're open to whatever is going to happen. You really didn't know what would happen. If you read the stories, the biographies of so many successful people, that's what they all say. I was reading Elon Musk's autobiography by Walter Isaacson, and he was talking about that meeting he was at with Charlie Munger, and he was like, Tesla's doomed to fail. Did you know that? Do you know that? He's like, yes, I 100% do. Then why are you going on with it? It's like, well, what else would I do? I have no idea what's going to happen, so I'm just going to give it my all. And then he completely turned around the company, and it became a multi-billion-dollar company. When we can control our own importance levels, we can control what resistance we're attributing to what particular thing in our life. In the instance of outer importance, it's something outside of us, something that we're expecting to happen. In the case of inner importance, it's some inequality that we have, some insecurity that we have, something that we value too much about ourselves. So the thing with importance is always with respect to something else. So it's kind of like if you're looking at different bars in life, right? One area of your life becomes too important, then you disrupt the balance of nature. Let me explain what I mean. There is this field in nature called the potential field. If you look at the field is very uniform naturally. When I put too much meaning towards something, I'm artificially projecting importance. Then one particular area of my life becomes too bunched up, there is an imbalance. Nature does not like this. Nature wants to balance this out. And this is the key. You have to create your own balance, otherwise nature will create it for you. Otherwise, circumstances will happen that you may or may not like that will create this balance. Have you ever noticed how when you become needy in like a relationship, and you put the person on a pedestal, all you do is repel them and they keep getting further and further away? That's exactly what happens. You create more and more resistance. You keep pushing that thing away with importance. And that is simply nature's path of least resistance to balancing this field out. So we never want to attribute too much meaning towards something. And the attitude to knowing for certain that you're in balance is if you can be okay with it going either way. It's great if I get that sale. It's even better if not. It's great if I get that promotion. It's even better if not. It's great if I hit the revenue goal this month. It's better if not. And I remember this happened to me. After April, when our house flooded, we decided with a new baby on the way, we had to find a new house. You know, like we can't have this flooding thing going on again. And the house is not big enough for 2 offices and a nursery, so we got to find a house. The first house we found, we were really close with, and things were gonna go well, and all of a sudden it didn't. The house failed inspection. Our importance level was really high. We really wanted the house. We really wanted to get out of this house because of the flood and everything that happened. We were scared. We had a lot of importance. So that house didn't work out. The second house was even better than the first. It was 2-story. It was exactly what we were looking for. Even if that house flooded, we had 2 stories, right? At the last minute, the realtor of the other house stopped responding. They probably got a better offer and they were trying to back out after the contract date. And again, importance level was very high to getting that house. And so, it fell through again. Last minute, we had to back out of it because they were being non-responsive. And then finally, with this house that we just moved to, I noticed this importance level being high again. But then I realized, hey, with the last two houses, anything can happen. So me and my wife, we got into this full acceptance that anything could happen. We accepted the possibility of failure in the first place. But to tell you the truth, this house is miles better than the other two houses. The school district is phenomenal. It's got 7 bedrooms and it's just like, it's the house that we were looking for. The finishing is great. They renovated it perfectly. It's literally like this house was built for us. And now when we look back at it, we were like, holy shit, we're so glad we didn't go to the other two houses. We didn't get the other two houses. Otherwise we wouldn't have been here. It's funny how life works. When you make the intention and you let go of it, eventually God or the universe allows you to find the right thing that you are looking for. The one thing you have to remember, one key you have to remember is, you'll know you're in balance when you can be okay either way. If it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, even better. I'm not bothered by it. The number one thing that I like to do is find plan B. So to give you an example, when I quit my job and started up my business, my parents were supporting me. They were keeping me in the house, buying me food and helping me live rent-free after college, after they paid like $250,000 in tuition to send me to college. And I told them, F this degree, I'm just gonna, start up my own business that's completely unrelated to mechanical engineering. They were supporting me and I took a big risk, but I had a plan B. I did finish my schooling and my degree. I did get my degree so that I could potentially get a job if this failed. Do you see what I'm saying? Your appetite for risk might be different from my appetite for risk. I knew that I could justify my importance level if I had at least finished college. I couldn't waste this and throw away the degree after doing 3 or 4 years and investing so much already. I would rather just finish it and then try to work on starting up my business. And worst case scenario, plan B, I go and find a job that I would hate. And some people might think, oh, if you find a plan B, you're copping out. That's a cop out. You got to burn all bridges. I think that's bullshit. There's a time and a place to burn bridges, and there's a time and a place to find a plan B. Because if your thought energy is constantly preoccupied in negativity and fear every single day, you won't have your faculties available to focus on the thing that you want, which is to grow a successful business. And that's fortunately what I was taught by my mentors at a very early stage. Solution number 2, right from the get-go, accept the possibility of failure. You come into it with the acceptance of failure that, hey, I don't know what's going to happen. The best things in life happen when you're in that I don't know stage, because when you say I don't know, you say I'm open. I'm open to receiving the very best that life can offer me. When you say I know, then you say I'm stubborn. I want what I want and I'm not open to receiving what universe thinks could potentially be better for me. You really just got to get into accepting whatever it is life is throwing at you right now. Okay? And when you do that and your importance level is lowered, guess what? You have the capability to focus on the thing that you want. Finally, I want to talk to you about realization. One of the main things that you have to understand to make a permanent shift. Understand that when our lower selves dissolves, the ego dissolves, it dissolves into something that is much greater. When the droplet dissolves, it becomes ocean. It stops thinking that it's a minor droplet and it becomes the whole ocean. This is what I realized when I was in chronic imbalance, when I made my first, 10, 20K month. And I was like, oh, I'm all this now, I'm big, I'm blah, blah, blah. When my inner importance to my own abilities got too high, I was always in for a rude awakening. Something terrible would happen, and it was kind of like life's twisted way of showing me that I wasn't all that. I was noticing that there was a tendency of this happening. I would do a big revenue month and then come down and then go up again, then come down. And there was all this inconsistency. But this inconsistency was happening because of my own attitude. And I realized that the effect of this attitude was I was getting too comfortable. I was getting too complacent. I didn't do the things that I needed to do. And I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people do large months and then lose it all. Why? Because they stop doing the thing that helped them become successful. They become arrogant. They think that everything they touch turns to gold and there is no work to be put in. I was listening to a video recently by this influencer that I follow, And he was talking about this. And he was saying, yeah, I made it all. I made so much money that I bought my parents a house and my parents' a house, and I bought a boat, and I still had change left over. And then I thought, maybe I should start another business on this. And then he lost a couple $100,000 there. Then he invested in some crypto, lost a couple $100,000 there. And then he invested more and more and more into different things that weren't the original thing that he was talented at, until he just lost it all, and now he's building himself back up. And all of this happens because, guess what? You're creating this imbalance again, right? So every time something goes well, I don't revel in it. I just notice it, I'm grateful for it, but I realize that this too shall pass. When something bad happens, this too shall pass. And this reminds me of that realization of death. This too shall pass. This material body too shall pass. When you can get into that state, you become intensely present. You develop this quality of presence, and when people look at you, that you have this magnetic quality about you, because your mind isn't wandering for that next thing, that next thing. You're rooted and grounded in this very moment. You almost become magnetic. So whenever I realize that this too shall pass, contrary to popular belief, bad things don't happen. Bad things happen less and less. Better and better things keep happening, because I no longer take all of the things that have happened for granted. If we have a really great month, I know that around the corner, there could be a bad month. And that's something that I learned from Warren Buffett. When everyone is greedy, you have to become afraid. When everyone is afraid, you have to become greedy. When something great happens, wow, I'm so grateful that this happened. I'm so grateful that I'm experiencing this. But I know that tomorrow, none of this could be there. Something crazy in the world could happen. There could be a nuclear disaster. Like, it could all pass. It could all pass. And people think that's a very nihilistic way of thinking about things. But honestly, it's brought me so much joy. It's brought me so much presence to this very moment. And surprisingly, it's only made better and better things happen in my life. And I know if you give up the judgment to thinking about what others say and society says about what you should be thinking and what you shouldn't be thinking, and stop trying to make yourself positive all the time and just watch and accept what's happening and just accept the reality of it, that all of this too shall pass. And yes, things will get better and better. And yes, things might get worse and worse. But in the end, whatever you assume, whatever assumption you made, it will come to life. It will happen. Simply because you chose it. So what I want you to do right now is click right here, because I made a comprehensive video on the mechanism that makes your dreams come true. The mechanism that makes reality actually manifest. And that's the vehicle that helps movement of material realization actually happen. I've used this for the last 7 years, and it's changed every single area of my life. This tool is called visualization. It's very simple, but there's 2 types of visualizations that I talk about in this video. And by the end of it, I share with you a cheat sheet that outlines everything that I talked about. It's the most comprehensive video that I made. And it will really complement the centering attention exercise that we talked about. Because once you center yourself and you detach from the screens, you have a choice. You have this split second, this moment where you can visualize that ideal scene that you want and have it powerfully build up and manifest, okay? So I made this video for you. You can click right here to check it out. It's literally on YouTube, and I hope you benefit from it, guys. I make these videos so we can accomplish our mission selfishly to help every single human being on earth. That's our mission here at realitycreator.com. You can click right here to check that out. If you share that with a friend too, and if you share this video with a friend, I would be really, really grateful, because I know we're making an impact. So click right here and I'll see you in this next video. Thanks.